Hello, everyone. My name is Megan Hershey. I'm Senior Sales Manager with AVIXA. We're just going to give everyone a few moments to join the webinar today. After we get those few moments, we'll go ahead and get started. So we're really excited you were able to join us today. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Megan Hershey. I'm Senior Sales Manager at AVIXA, and welcome to Cost-Effective Video Analytics from Edge to Cloud with Intel and their partners, presented by Diane Lamandola, Global Partner Scale Director, Retail Banking, Hospitality, and Education Intern with Intel, Cassia Hansen, Global Director, Edge, AI Sales, Safety and Security, Safe Cities and Venues, Internet of Things Group with Intel, Olivier Duizabo, President, Quivity, Rami Bahar, Head of Business Development, Shakel Brainway Limited, and Gerald Becker, VP of Market Development and Alliances with Quanergy. Before I hand over the presentation, just a few housekeeping items. For those viewing live today, today's webinar qualifies for 0.5 CTS, CTSV, and CTSI renewal unit credits. Please allow 5 to 7 business days to view on your transcripts. For any issues, please email webinars@avixa.org. The webinar will be approximately 45 to 60 minutes, and all attendees will be placed on mute. If you have questions during the presentation, please enter them into the Q&A window only so today's moderator can address them at the end of the webinar. To access the Q&A window, please simply move your cursor to the bottom of your live stream video box and locate the Q&A icon and type away. You will have access to this recorded webinar at avixa.org/webinars within about 5 business days. Now over to Diane. Take it away.
Great. Thank you, Megan, so much. And thanks, everybody, for joining us today. Good morning, good afternoon from around the globe for joining us. What we're going to do this morning is we have Cassia, who's going to take us through a brief overview of Intel's strategy on video analytics. And then we're going to spend most of the time on our partner panel with our esteemed colleagues here, and really excited. They've got some great stories to share with everybody. And then we'll save the last 10 minutes for Q&A. And so please be ready and prepared and ask us all your great questions, because we want to be able to answer as many of those as we can, and then we will wrap it up. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Cassia to walk us through the Intel strategy.
Good morning. Thanks, Diane. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Let me go ahead and technology very early in the morning. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started talking about cost-effective analytics. Most people know me. I'm pretty passionate about this topic. I can talk for days on video analytics and how it's changing the security world, in addition to other worlds like visual displays and you name it. So I'm going to try to go as fast as I can, and happy to answer questions later or follow up online if you have additional questions. So first, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the market trends. Talk about Edge AI with Intel, and then talk about a little bit about the ecosystem. So with that said, video analytics are transforming our lives. We're seeing it on a daily basis, from hospitals and healthcare utilizing video infrastructure and AI weaved in with analytics to, improving quality of life, as well as like agricultural, using video to manage agricultural yields. And then, of course, public safety, and really advancing public safety and how that's used on a day-to-day basis to keep constituents safe in a city or a municipality or whatever it may be. So, overall, what they're doing, video analytics are really, helping us optimize our productivity, drive more efficiency. Cost is a big deal. Over the years, it's been very expensive to deploy analytics. So, really bringing the cost down, making it much more efficient to, and accessible to do that. So where is AI moving? You know, it's really moving to the edge, and you've probably heard a lot about edge deployments, and I think you'll continue to hear about that in 2021. You know, really, if you look at it, about 75% of the data is generated outside of the data center, outside of a traditional data center, which to me is no surprise, especially from a analytics perspective. You know, you kind of go from the switch out to the endpoint, and a lot of the data is generated out that way. 43% of AI tasks are taking place at the edge versus in the cloud. That number, my guess, is probably much higher. You know, as we left 2020, you know, much advancement around edge capabilities, the ability to run traditional video analytics on edge devices, you know, whether it's, you know, let's say from a camera perspective, as an example, 8, 10 cameras, you know, it's fairly inexpensive to do that at this point in time, and it's getting much more cost effective as we continue to develop capabilities to enable developers to have their software run on CPU rather than have to add multiple acceleration technologies to that. So what are some of the challenges in bringing edge to bringing analytics to the edge? The reality is, you know, the need for real-time results. You know, edge intelligence can really take up a lot of bandwidth and storage, and so, you know, really working through what that looks like, and how you can utilize the existing network capabilities to improve that. You know, but edge intelligence is there. How do you use that? How do you create an environment that reduces that latency? And then, of course, you know, there are cases where video needs to stay on-prem. So looking at solutions that are cost-effective to, you know, really utilize analytics in a way that gives you the real-time data, but you can keep some of that sensitive data on-prem. So I like to say it's really around, you know, diversifying your environment from edge to cloud. So there's a play for each of them in environments today, and the technology that we're bringing along with our partners, you know, enables you to create that diversified environment where you can get the information you need, get that intelligence, but also, you know, have an environment that, you know, if you have sensitive data, you can keep it on-prem. If you need data that needs to go to the cloud, that can happen as well. So much happening there, and I think it will continue to advance in 2021 as well. So deploying, you know, edge AI with Intel, you know, want to kind of share with you where we're going relative to our product portfolio. You know, obviously, there's growing needs for intelligence at the edge, as I mentioned, and specifically deep learning at the edge. So we've created a portfolio strategy that enables intelligent video systems from edge to cloud that can meet all price, performance, power, form factors, environmental conditions, and other requirements. And so we offer a very broad portfolio in the industry to meet many of these needs. So we have our Movidius-based solution on the left-hand side that is running very low power, you know, add intelligence to cameras. Then you have your NVRs and edge servers, you know, and let me move I realize my camera's on here. There we go. Then you have your NVRs and edge servers and AI in the middle, running anything from Movidius to Atom to Core to Xeon. So you have a very much diversified product portfolio to choose from there at every price point. And then, of course, we have, you know, our for higher performance, you know, Xeon parts, which now have integrated deep learning acceleration. We call that DL Boost in second gen Xeon. So that enables you to not have to add any acceleration technology. Moving on to OpenVINO. So if you haven't heard of OpenVINO, it's not opening a bottle of wine, although you know, it's definitely a fun name to talk to and create gifts around. But to enable that portfolio, kind of the wrapper is really OpenVINO. We launched the toolkit in 2018. You know, it's really a tool to enable developers to maximize performance for deep learning inferencing. and traditional computer vision. So as computer vision and AI really expand and accelerate, and I believe, COVID really accelerated the use of AI at the edge. Last year, you want to have capabilities. Developers want to be able to develop quickly new analytics, such as they did last year around, occupancy controls, mask on, mask off, distancing, etc. Those are some examples of those analytics that were created very, very quickly, and our partners were able to do that using the OpenVINO toolkit that enabled them to do that. So OpenVINO is very efficient. It enables you to develop across all of our Intel products. So whether it's our visual processing unit, our CPUs, our integrated graphics, or our FPGAs, it allows you to, update across all of those. So it saves development time. It supports very broad use cases. So digital surveillance, retail, robotics, healthcare, industrial machine vision, office automation, and many, many others. And then, of course, the last thing that's probably most important is it's free. If you do a search on your favorite browser today, you can search for OpenVINO, and it'll take you to the OpenVINO community, and you can download a version of that and start playing with it. So I realize that, probably not a lot of developers in the audience today. Maybe there are some, but the reality is this enables deep learning and computer vision to be able to be more broadly deployed at a much lower cost. So you can now have intelligence at the edge, and you don't need to send anything to the cloud or as much to the cloud, let's say, as I mentioned, to that diversification, and you may not require high-end GPUs, for example. So let's talk a little bit about, I'm going to go very fast through this one. I'm happy to answer questions later on, but a couple of our portfolio products that are really changing the landscape here. We purchased a company several years ago called Movidius. They have a VPU that called MyriadX. This is a very low-powered VPU, so it's optimized for size, weight, power. So for lower camera counts, really more cost effective as well from a performance per watt, and it can be used in cameras or accelerator cards. And I'm going to quickly go through the Vision Accelerator cards. We also developed a line. There will be a time when CPU and deep learning boost, for example, won't meet your workload performance requirements. So we created our Vision Accelerator cards to help meet those needs at a better price performance envelope. So we have multiple cards at multiple sizes. We have about 28 cards available on the market with 9 hardware providers. They have M.2 cards to M.PCIe cards. You can have 1 to 4 MyriadXs in those cards, up to 8. And they offer a wide range of performance depending on what you need. And so I didn't put pricing on here, but just to give you a sense, pricing ranges from $70 to a single MyriadX M.2 to $700 for 8 VPUs. So it's pretty cost effective if you're needing to add performance to your edge devices. So with that said, I want to just wrap it up with a comment about our ecosystem. And we have some of our partners on here today, which we're really excited about. It takes a village, right? It takes an ecosystem to develop these solutions, enable them for our customers and end users to consume these. And we've worked very hard to create what we believe is a best in breed ecosystem of solutions for Edge AI to make it easier on you to develop and deploy solutions in your environment. So with that said, I'll go ahead and hand it back to Diane. Hopefully I made the time frame, Diane. So
thank you, Kasia.
Okay.
Thank you. Kasia has a presentation that we could probably spend a couple of hours on if we had the time. So Kasia, thank you for sharing the technologies that we have at Intel that have really made this evolution at the edge remarkable in terms of what is actually capable. But it's really our partners that bring this all to life. And so what we'd like to do is each of our partners that have joined us today, they have a really unique story on how video and analytics and AI solutions are really bringing and solving big problems today. So what we'd like to do is I'd have each of you tell us a little bit about yourself, your company, and a success story that you're most proud of. So Rami, can we start with you? We need to unmute you, Rami.
I was just saying that I'm probably the oldest one in the room, so I can start definitely. I'm head of business development in Shekel Brainwave Retail Innovation Department, with over 20 years of experience in disrupting technologies, starting with digital signage and out-of-home media, the early 2000s. A company called Scenario was one of the founders there. Then I moved into software-based video conferencing when the video conferencing business was all about hardware. It was early 2010s. And then with automated video content creation, and now I'm at Autonomous Retail, working for Shekel Brainwave, which is a 50 years old technology provider, leading provider of weighing technologies to the global markets of retail and healthcare. And 3 years ago, we transformed traditional load cell into IoT sensor. And basically, we are claiming that we could identify different SKUs by their weighted behavior, leaning on very accurate sensors and AI and machine learning models in which we are using the Intel processors to get better results. A nice success story you asked us to provide is an autonomous store in Paris, France. It's operated by Monoprix, called the Monop Box, and it's actually a small store where people just identify themselves. The door is opening, they get in, they take whatever they want from out of almost 500 SKUs and go out completely frictionless. And the store is operated by our sensors, Intel processors, and some Lidar technology. This is about me. Thank you. Diane? I think we lost Diane. Maybe Gerald could be the next.
Yeah, I'll go next. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Gerald Becker. I head up market development and alliances globally for Quanergy. I myself have been in the physical security industry for about 17 years, and I've had the luxury to be able to touch every component of the ecosystem. I've been an end user, I've been a systems integrator, manufacturer, and in my current role within Quanergy, doing system sales for our 3D Lidar sensors and our perception software. So some unique use cases, and we've got quite a few of them. A lot of you may be familiar with LiDARs. It's being used for terrestrial tracking on drones and even autonomous vehicles and robotics. We're disrupting that type of typical use case and bringing it into the physical security space and going for flow management type of applications. So going for smart cities, going for smart spaces, and providing a 3D visualization that's never been done beyond what's been traditional in the security space from a 2D perspective. So what we do is we are able to work hand in hand in partnership with camera manufacturers and VMS platforms to provide that 3D space and visualize inside of a location to understand where people are moving, where people are queuing, where footfall is as far as dwell time, and all kinds of different things as it pertains to count as well. As we're dealing with this new day and age of COVID, a lot of new regulations that are being pushed out globally as far as occupancy, queue time, that's as far as how people are in line in certain areas to get them in and out as fast as possible, and obviously with safety. Now, a couple things that I can name, or I'm gonna go ahead and name one that I'm very proud of or very excited about, is that we're deploying our technologies in critical infrastructure, in smart cities and smart spaces, but beyond airports, as far as what we're doing for queue time analysis, as far as getting people in and out for TSA lines, we're deploying these in smart cities at intersections for optimizing traffic flow. So no longer having people having to wait at red lights when there's literally no cars coming through and inside of cities. Well, understanding the space with our senses, we can actually understand and maximize the flow within cities, but even more so, keep pedestrians safe. Understanding when to turn the lights red, when to turn them green, and avoid collisions, if you will. So very excited to talk about a little bit more, optimize our technology through Intel's product portfolio. You will see that we do some very unique things with LiDAR. I'll give this over to Olivier.
Yes, sure. Hi, I'm Olivier Duzabo here. I am the co-founder and president of Quivity, a company that does video analytics in retail and on digital out-of-home screens. So basically, we calculate how many people walk past, pay attention to content on a screen, and then we deliver reports of what was the real audience of the content that ran on these screens. We do that real time. We use obviously OpenVINO for a lot of the classification. And the output also makes it possible to, in real time, change content depending on the number, the profile, the behavior of the users. And that's all done without locally, without saving any image, obviously, without recognizing people. So it's really about face detection and analytics. So we do that at scale. We have about 25,000 screens equipped worldwide, many of them in malls. And one of our typical customers is Westfield in the US. Across, I think there are 25 plus malls. So I mean, all of their totems, the screens, double-sided screens that you find in the alleys come with cameras and our software running onto one single PC. And so we analyze both streams and we make them able to guarantee impressions, which is something really big for digital signage. In other terms, they can commit to delivering a certain number of contacts with potential audiences, either with general profile or by profile, like you want to have a millennial girls, to see your content, then you'll pay just for that. And that's really unique in the industry. Beyond that, they've done tons of projects to launch, for example, The Bachelor on on ABC, where people would interact and that the character would play with you depending on whether you were a man, you had a mustache, you were approaching, smiling, and so forth. So we basically make digital signage smart and accountable.
Great. Thanks, Olivier. Thanks, everybody, for that introduction. So we've got a broad and wide, extensive experience with our panelists today. Rami, could you share a little bit about what are some of the greatest challenges your customers are seeing in retail and addressing right now, and maybe what are some of the limitations of computer vision in retail today?
Well, the major driver for retail challenges is the e-commerce. Basically, the online shopping made a huge challenge for the shop, to the brick and mortar shops. A lot of stores just, the profits were cut and store sizes were cut. And basically the retail industry is struggling with this new concept of getting everything from home. In some industries, it got worse in the COVID times. The only survivor so far is the food industry, where people are, well, the penetration of e-commerce is not so big, but it's also being changed. And as a result, basically two things happened. One is profits went down very much for the retailers. Second, the store sizes went smaller because they want to sell less merchandise. Electronics and fashion are almost pure online business now. And as in many cases, the poison is also the medicine. So retailers are took information technologies as a kind of a cure for their troubles, and they're using it for basically four different applications in the retail. One is the promotion in the point of sale, which is considered to be the most efficient. And this is the digital out of home and things that Olivier is doing, and really driving people to increase their purchases at the point of sale. The second is more the expense side, is cutting expenses through more efficient operation, like inventory management, which gets deeper into what I have on the shelves, etc. Planogram compliance, which is working with the CPGs and you want to do it correctly. Loss prevention, this is a critical part where people are losing 2 to 4% of their annual revenues, while the total profitability is less than 3%. The third party is more about analytics. It could be consumer behavior analytics or other types of shoppers' behavior analytics, which is important to, again, increase sales, cut costs. And I think the diamond or the crown jewels here are the autonomous stores, where basically you operate a complete store without intervention of labor and with very well monitored inventory levels. And we see it with Amazon Go and other types of frictionless shopping solutions. It starts with smart coolers and vending machines and ending up at fully autonomous convenience stores. To operate such a thing, you need basically quite a lot of sensors. All of them are AI and machine learning driven. One of them is the products recognition. You need to identify the products. And here there are, of course, the computer vision solution. We're doing it using the IoT load sensors, which we developed. And there are some RFID solutions, but basically the challenge is to identify each and every SKU very accurately. The second part is the shoppers tracking, where we see naturally the computer vision solution there, tracking people, and I will shortly speak about the limitations. And we see more and more LiDAR-based solutions coming to overcome the shortcomings of the computer vision. The computer vision limitation in retail are quite a few. One is the ambient light in the stores, which is really a thing. If you get into computer vision store, it will be all dark with dark shelves and dark walls, and people not always like to be in such a dark place. Second, and very critical in Europe, is privacy, GDPR. It comes to German retailers who say, if I have a camera in my store, nobody comes, even if it's a surveillance camera. It's very difficult for computer vision to identify very small objects in the noisy retail environment. If you have a small bubble gum hiding deep in the shelf, that's not easy to trace. And the last but not least is the costly and time-consuming video processing on the edge, which basically create a latency and bring people to think about the cost of operation, which is not neglectable. To overcome all this, I think that LiDAR offers a great opportunity, and I pass the ball to Gerald. I think this is your domain.
Great, Rami. Thanks. Thanks for that. And Gerald, you've got some you have a really interesting use of technology and solution. So maybe you could share with us what is possible with LiDAR and AI-powered analytics.
Absolutely. Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and run through a quick video here and just talk about the art of the possible and things that we can actually deploy with LiDAR. So first and foremost, at Quanergy, we track the flow of objects through the use of LiDAR. We design and manufacture hardware sensors that shoot eye-safe lasers, both in a mechanical 360 unit and also solid-state unit, which is combined with our AI perception software, Cortex. So many of you may be more familiar with the use of LiDAR, as I mentioned, for mapping, for drones and robotics and autonomous vehicles. We're able to fuse several sensors together to act as one and to be able to detect, track, and classify objects in a 3D space, such as the case here for social distancing, counting, pathing, and various other use cases. We also provide that no PII risk. So we're not looking at face, we're not looking at any sort of biometric data. So digging a little bit deeper, what you see in this visualization here on the left-hand side, you see a yellow square where we drew an area of an alarming sense. Now, the guy being tracked is being moved around through the PTZ through the commands that we're sending from our Lidar. So our Lidar is telling you precisely down to the centimeter where this person is at, and we could track that person within an environment to understand where the football's at, where he cued, where he dwelled, to give that visibility. This is a great example here, both from occupancy and also from surveillance inside of a museum. We apply unique IDs to every single person walking around, so we can understand, how dense, how occupied the location is, and maybe if somebody may have been interacting with something in the museum and they weren't supposed to, we can then move that around. Now, our solutions are being deployed in several industries to include restaurants and retail settings. And what you're seeing here is basically the queue time analysis, but also the pathing that people are taking within the environment. So we're actually able to see how people are interacting within the environment. So we could see, are they touching this? How long are the lines? How many people are inside? And also if we're exceeding occupancy at any given time. Now, one thing I do want to capitalize on here is that our sensors, they don't need to be married directly side to side with the camera, but they could be completely off to the side. And because we're shooting lasers inside of the environment, we're able to see everything in a 3D space. So it's not exactly coupled directly with the camera, but we interact hand to hand with the camera and be able to shoot the PTZ coordinates and or mirror what's going on in that environment. So we offer very accurate count. In fact, we're very proud with the accuracies that we're able to provide beyond some IoT sensor technology that's out there. But what you're seeing here is actually an indoor retail setting and providing the counting as you see here flowing. Now, our solutions are being deployed globally through different applications, and I'm super happy to show this. This is one of our latest wins in San Francisco, where we're actually doing the city in downtown and providing a pedestrian flow and safety, but even more so optimizing traffic flow. Our sensors are deployed at countless intersections in downtown. And basically this is used to optimize the flow of traffic. So if there's a red light and there's no cars passing, then our software interacts directly with our hardware and our third-party partners to say, hey, turn the light green, let the cars pass, but even more so for collision avoidance to keep the pedestrians safe within that city. So this is being done for several other applications in different industries, but this is something that we're trying to do to obviously improve the work life and also the flow within cities. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this is not only in just cities, but we deploy in airports and also in venues. So this is a use case for social distancing. As I alluded to, we're able to provide accuracy down to the centimeter. So in an environment, not only do we get XYZ coordinates with our sensor, which is that third dimension that we provide, but we can understand where people are at in relation to other groups of people. So we could potentially bound to technology such as what Olivier is doing with digital signage, where we could put up a sign that says, hey, distance yourself from the group. You may be a little too close. Maintain regulation for your safety and health precautions within the environment. So all in all, I think that what we're doing at Quanergy is very unique. We're offering LiDAR technology with perception software coupled with technology partners and offering a new dimension to AI analytics. And one thing I do want to mention is that it's one thing to provide these technologies, but it's another thing to be fully integrated into the ecosystem of partners. In the physical security industry, we're strongly aligned with some of the top VMS partners out there, so video management security platforms. So if you guys want to touch base after that, we're fully integrated to some of the big names as far as video security goes.
Thanks, Gerald. Thanks for that overview. Olivier, your organization is doing some really interesting work with real-time audience analytics. So can you also share how is video technology changing right now, and what does that mean for AI and digital signage?
Well, for a long time, digital signage was such that content was put on screen and we had no clue whether people paid attention. But people vote with their eyes. The fact that they would watch longer means something, means the content is good, the screen is well located. And by just measuring that, we can really help the network operator, be it for an advertising purpose or just for internal promotion, to optimize that communication tools. It's really a tool that is under-potentialized at the moment, and we think it's because it has lacked a lot of the currencies or metrics that can make it turn into a really finely mastered media like the internet has become. So in the future, we think that we'll see more and more screens coming with cameras. There are some manufacturers working on that. We see many projects that come pre-equipped with some sensors. One of them is a camera, and a camera could really be a few, a $700 webcam. Typically, because this brings the intelligence on the edge, and you can really now understand the context. Is there someone right now? If there are more than one, what type of profile is some of these target group preferring this content here and there? And so by just doing that, this has some real impact on the bottom line for the retailer, because the more people engage, the more they watch, the more they buy. I mean, it's been demonstrated on, and I can typically mention this project with Samsung Galaxy on a really large scale. We played content that changed depending on whether it was a family or a woman above 40 or a senior, etc. We did that on the even days. On the odd days, we wouldn't do that. And so we tracked whether the ad, which was for a telco company, for the launch of the Samsung Galaxy, would drive people into the store. And sure it did. I mean, plus 16% by just delivering that. And plus, we realized that when you do something that resonates with people, they watch really longer, they pay more attention, brand value goes up, etc. So really, we think real time makes sense. For real time, you need CPU. For good CPU, you need Intel, because there's with everything that OpenVINO now offers, there's a lot that could be done, and that makes a lot of sense to be based on Intel.
Great, thanks, Olivier. Kasia, did you want to make any comments? I know you've been engaged in doing this for quite some time, and we've got some great stories that we've heard so far. I just wanted to see if you wanted to add a few comments based on some of your experiences that you've seen recently in working with all of the folks that we've just heard from.
Yeah, I think, for me, it's very exciting. Seeing over the last several years, the acceleration of analytics at the edge. And, when I came into this, I've been at Intel for 20 years. And when I really came into the IoT segment and started focusing on security in the market, it was very expensive to be able to deploy. And, most companies will develop a product for a very large customer, and then, the rest of the world kind of adopts it, right? Now we're seeing, lots of different solutions utilizing video analytics at the edge. And I think, it's worth mentioning, 2020 was quite the year for all of us. But I truly believe, and I think, you guys have all seen this, really accelerated AI at the edge. The capability to deploy for a retail, for example, as you mentioned, being able to track kind of the movement in the store, or occupancy controls, or even traffic, right? To Gerald's example, being able to use technology to identify traffic patterns, and the ability to keep constituents safe in a city, I think that really accelerated. A lot of these technologies were planned over years, and I think they got pulled into 2020. So I'm excited about it. The use of video analytics, has become much more cost effective. There's so many different use cases that can be applied in the market. We just want to make it easier for developers to develop it, and then for end users to be able to adopt that very easily. So really, what Olivier, Rami, and Gerald have all talked about, really hits the sweet spot of what we're seeing, one of the biggest trends in the market. So, I use the word trend lightly, because, people say, oh, it's a trend, it's going to go away. It's not going to go away. The next one will come, but the reality is this, I think, is helping us create a much more flexible and, really adding predictive capabilities, that intelligence at the edge that most businesses are looking for, and really delivering those business results. And I think that's going to be more important than ever as we really come out of this pandemic, hopefully someday, and really start to look at how this can help change the landscape of different industries and help them grow and kind of rebirth, post pandemic. So I feel pretty positive and pretty passionate about it. So.
Great, Cassia. Thanks. I know you are. And speaking of developing, hey, Gerald, what solutions are you most looking forward to developing in the future?
Yeah, so it's not really the future, it really is now. So we're super excited about what we're working on right now. As you know, what we're doing with Lidar has never been done before. A lot of the market has been hyper focused on making vehicles drive by themselves, while we've seen that there's near-term opportunities in other markets that can be applied, that create, or not create, but solve problems that are actual use cases that can be deployed now. What I'm excited about in the retail and indoor venue type of applications, or even in commercial buildings, is how we're using Lidar to understand queue, to understand occupancy, to understand footfall and pathing, to understand how people interact in certain environments. So we're dealing in the gaming industry right now. And one of the prime concerns is understanding, how do you keep people inside of the casinos now that they've left the show, or they've interacted after the conference, or how do we keep people gambling and make the place sticky so that they continue the experience beyond just going to the show and then beelining to the parking lot, right? So our sensors are now providing visualization and intent to understand where people are going after the event, or after the fact of what they came to do. So our solutions are being deployed in a whole new way that video analytics have been stretched in the past, but now we're adding a new dimension, that third dimension, with our solution. So I'm excited about what we're doing inside of indoor venues, inside of indoor commercial, or even in retail. In retail specific, it's understanding planogram placement, end caps, and understanding how to optimize in store now that we know that people are spending less time inside. How do we move things around so we can interact more with consumers and understand how do we make the engagement or the experience more effective than what it was or is right now, considering people are just coming in and leaving. How do we get, place things within an environment so that we get more from it, as far as, top line revenue, experience, and people to just keep coming back, right? So I talk about retail, but these use cases that we have traverse every single market. It's all about understanding where people are inside of an environment. So, I love the fact that we are able to couple with camera technology and complement those solutions, but at the same time, we're offering something completely new that's never been done in physical security, that allows to truly understand the flow of people. And I think this is what really excites me, is that we're first to market in the sense of how we're doing in a 3D space with Lidar. And I think that we're light years ahead from anybody else, because we're leveraging CPU and we're leveraging the architecture with Intel as our partner. And we don't have to use large overhead with GPU as most traditional computer vision applications take. Coming from AI in a previous life, I understand that it's a lot of overhead to run these algorithms. We're very effective, and we're able to run using CPU technology, where we can literally deploy with minimal overhead to start doing a lot of the use case applications with our solution. So super excited about that.
Great, thanks, Gerald. So our audience represents a full complement of the ecosystem, and all of you are looking and focusing on different aspects of that partner ecosystem. So Rami, could you maybe share first, what do you need from the partner ecosystem?
Well, basically, what we see is that in retail application and in other applications as well, when we come to AI and this type of applications, you need to be very careful not to carry the world upon your shoulder. I mean, the borders are very fine. And unless you're focusing on very specific capabilities, you find yourself trying to solve all the issues in retail, or all the issues in smart city management, or whatever. And our idea is we are focusing very much in providing product recognition or object recognition as accurate and as cost-effective as possible. And we communicate it with other systems, like Lidar system, who would track the people who had some interaction with this object, or with POS system, who could drive the pricing and the promotions and the complete buying experience, or the digital signage that could promote an object which is on the shelf but could stop promoting it when it's not available anymore. So the idea is that I think that one of the most important things is to know your limits, to know exactly what problem you want to solve it and do it the best way possible. And then the collaboration becomes the key factor. And the ecosystem is really becoming the secret source of success. Because if you are collecting good partners and you provide them with good inputs, you can get out of it much better than if you would try to do the whole thing by yourself. If I can give kind of a music analogy, then you would find these people who could do a complete record by themselves. They play, they sing, they write the song, they write the lyrics, they do everything as a single person. Personally, I feel that there is always missing something because you have only one point of view. While in a successful band, you will get much richer overview of the song or of the art. The same for technology. I mean, if we're coming from different angles, each one is focusing on the points that are of interest and of capacity to solve, we will get much better solution.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Looks like we have a couple of questions that are coming in from our audience. So, Olivia, I think this one is for you, which is how do you counter bias as to the person that you might be drawing attention to digital signage? And do you concentrate on a specific, how do you concentrate on a specific individual, without maybe trying to appeal to them versus not creating bias for others?
Well, digital signage is a one to few media. So you could assume that there would be several people, but some would pay more attention. So we describe the audience in real time. We say this one person has been there for so many seconds. That's a man. He's 42. He's currently smiling, etc. And then you define the scenarios that you want to use. So if it's all about nudging a certain population or the one that is the most interested, then you'd set the scenario to show some content there. That is the dynamic way of doing things, dynamic content optimization. There's another way to do, which is simpler, which is just to look at the stats over time and say, well, on Fridays between 2 and 3, I see on average so many people with this demographic group being dominant and watching so much, so I'm going to overweight content for them. That's typically what 7-Eleven has been doing in Taiwan. We have 7,000 screens equipped there for them, and they really decide to use that understanding of the audience to put forward some products rather than others, because they know that they would be reaching this type of audience up there at that time. And that again pays off neatly with double-digit increases in terms of set through for those products.
And we're continuing to learn, right? As the technology evolves and as we see more and more deployments over time. Which, speaking of that, there's another question that's come in from the audience is, are you seeing any preferred deployment options in the vertical you are representing? And I'll open that up to any of the three of you that'd like to respond to that.
Well, I'd take it if you want. There are, different industries have different needs, obviously. We see more demands depending on the type of screen placement. The screen at the cash register doesn't have the same role as one in the shop window or one in a busy city center. So yes, we see demands there. There's a lot of appetite these days for food retailers who want to run a business of selling airtime to the manufacturers inside the stores. There's also a lot of projects these days for curbside pickups or QSR drive-through optimization that require just counting cars or processing that, having just these simple notions. So, I don't know if I addressed the answer, and I let my colleagues complete.
Yeah, in retail, we see a huge trend or very big interest in what is called autonomous stores or frictionless shopping. And Amazon Go started this trend about 2 years ago or 3 years ago almost. And what we see is that there is big interest, but very, very few implementations. So I would say that the game now is to look for the cost-effective frictionless shopping, which could justify the expense and the operation costs. And this is the preferred deployment I see in retail today. The idea is to get to smaller stores that are very not costly to implement and to operate, and that could enable retailers to open small locations in living environment, walking places, train stations, airports, etc. And then be close to the customers on the go, offer them a large selection of healthy and fresh foods. And this is becoming more and more desired.
Okay, that makes sense. Hey, Gerald, I have a question for you, kind of along the same lines, and maybe outside of the retail industry. Are your sensors, can you use your sensors both indoors and outdoors? And then maybe you could expand a little bit. I know you touched on how you integrate with VMSs, but maybe you could talk a little more of the role that the VMSs play in, with your solution.
Absolutely. Very good question. Critical in the deployment of our technologies. Our solutions, albeit can work standalone, but it's more common to work within an ecosystem or a platform environment where there's something that's managing all these IoT devices. So in the physical security space, we've aligned with some of the top VMSs, a few to name are Genetec, Security Center, Milestone with XProtect, and we've got several other VMSs that are in the development phase of integrating our solutions into their platform. Our hardware are both indoor and outdoor. We have IP-rated sensors, PoE sensors at that. We have a mechanical sensor that does 360 on a spinning turret that does that 360 degree visualization. And then we also have a solid state unit, which is basically used for overhead counting as people coming in and out. Both of these sensors are integrated into those VMS partners that I mentioned to you earlier. But it's very critical, and I say this, that it's one thing to have a sensor, but it's another thing to be fully integrated into the ecosystem of a solution that's being delivered to the end user world. Albeit some great IoT sensors are coming up on a weekly, monthly, yearly basis, but it's one thing to actually get that, take it off the shelf and deploy it inside an environment where you can actually solve a use case. And we're doing that now in partnership with a lot of these strategic VMS partners.
Okay, and yeah, it's evolving quickly. All kinds of changes happening very rapidly, and as Kasia mentioned earlier, we've seen this acceleration, within since we've all been in lockdown mode. That this digital acceleration, that what we thought would happen in maybe 10 years has happened within about 10 months. So, with that in mind, I'd like to ask each of you before we close out, what recommendations do you have for our audience? And if they are interested, what's the best way for them to engage with each of you? Olivier, you want to take that first?
Sure. Well, we are, first of all, we make it very easy for people to test our solution. You go to our contact page, you ask for test, and within 30 minutes, you're testing, literally. And within 1 day, you have your own private dashboard, etc. But B, we are working on a program to share knowledge and best practices on data, and not so much data, but insights, because you get lots of data. You will be drawn on with it. And so how do you make sense of all of it? What KPI is most interesting for you? So we have webinars, white papers, etc. And also a way we call an IQ passport, which is basically preparing a POC with all chances of success. So we'll help you select the right hardware. We'll provide data scientists to look at your data. We'll prepare the dashboards with you. And within 2 months, you'll be able to, to draw conclusions, and all that is maybe, co-financed by Quivity and Intel. It's part of our joint marketing programs.
You make it really easy for for other partners to work with you. Plus, if anybody's interested in a really extensive analysis of digital out-of-home audience impressions, there's a great paper that that Qvity has published that could be of interest to folks that want to do a little deeper dive on that. Rami, how about for your organization?
We look all the time for collaborations. As I mentioned earlier, we really see the collaboration as the secret of our success. And remind you, we are 50 years old company, so we have some experience. And what I recommend is that if somebody wants to contact us via our website, Shekel Brainway, or through Intel's programs of the IoT Association, or through the regular LinkedIn and social networks, and we could be easily connected. We're looking for partners, for integrators, for visual computer vision solution providers, Lidar solution providers, etc.
Yeah, Rami, your organization has certainly shown the test of time and evolved over the years to the point of where you stand today. Yeah. Gerald, how about for you? How would folks engage with Quanergy?
Yeah, so I'll start off by saying one would think that in this day and age of COVID that things have slowed down as far as POC and demoing out in the field, but I would say to the contrary. I've seen my FAE team and our BUs are actively flying around and deploying across the country, globally at that, considering we are a global company. If anyone's interested in doing follow-up webinars, demos, or even trying to test our solution in their environments for any of the flow managed applications, there's several ways you can communicate with me. You can go directly to quanergy.com. You can go to my LinkedIn and just look me up, send me an inbox, or you can reach out to Cassie and she could connect me directly to you guys from anything related for security. I'll be your main point of contact, but if there's anything beyond security, such as industrial, smart city, we've got several different of my peers on our team that can assist in those different applications.
And Cassie, do you want to share a few comments? Thank you, Gerald. And Cassie, do you want to share a few comments on Intel?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, we have I mentioned the global ecosystem, and of course, Gerald, Olivier, and Rami are part of that and great partners. So it does take a village. I think from an advice perspective is there's a lot of technologies out there. There's a lot of, especially with COVID, everybody's searching for new stuff. They're searching for how can it help their business get back to normal? How do you create safe spaces, safe environments? We're here to help, so feel free to reach out. We can connect you to any of the partners here, and just lean to the partners. My advice to some of our audiences in other sessions has really been, lean to the partners that have helped your business, and can help you identify new solutions, not necessarily just theirs, but they may have a partner they work with that they can bring in and introduce you to, and we all kind of have these networks of companies we work with who have really good vetted and validated solutions that can help you. And so that's my advice is, utilize the ecosystem, utilize the partners that you've trusted that can bring you other new partners and technologies. And of course, we're all here to help as well, and can answer any questions. We look broadly at the ecosystem, and to your point earlier, Diane, around the verticals, much of this technology is being, cross vertical, right? We're seeing a lot of growth in other verticals like smart cities, public safety, as well as, transportation is a really big one in some of the technology, to Gerald's example, as well as healthcare is significantly growing for obvious reasons, but technology is really going to help us get out of this thing. And so working together and providing you, the customers, with valid and vetted solutions and or opportunities to proof of concept, I think is the opportunity that exists. So thank you very much for joining us, and back to you, Diane.
Thanks, Cassia. And so today we really wanted to bring some of the most innovative partners that we're working with at Intel to all of you today, and how we're looking at video analytics and artificial intelligence. And this is going to continue to evolve very, very rapidly and quickly as a result of the great partnerships that we have with everybody that's on this call, and probably many of you in the audience as well. So please feel free to reach out to us to learn more, and we look forward to working with many of you in the future. So thank you very much for participating today, and from around the globe, because we have representatives from around the world here today. So we really appreciate everybody's participation and interaction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar, Cost-Effective Video Analytics from Edge to Cloud with Intel and their partners. This recording will be available on avixa.org/webinars within about 5 business days, and your 0.5 RU credits will be applied to your transcripts within 5 to 7 business days. If you have any trouble, please contact webinars@avixa.org. Thank you to Diane, Kasia, Olivier, Rami, and Gerald for helping us understand video analytics from edge to cloud. We hope you all enjoyed and have a great day. Thank you.